What is going on? If you are watching this, you're seeing real time, real life of the underwriting and the actual numbers when it comes to this flip on Christina Drive, 6117 Christina Drive East, Lakeland, Florida, 33813. So we are not doing so hot, unfortunately. So just get right to it. I'll go into detail later, but we're on pace to lose about 13 grand. That's not good. Obviously, we don't want to. We're not in the real estate to lose money. But in this video, I will show how we got here, what could have changed, what are things I could have done on my end to maybe solidify to basically get better numbers, as well as, okay, now what does this mean? How did we get to negative 13? Like, where is it coming from, etc. So let's just go straight to the expense tracker. So far we have spent, we haven't actually spent all of it yet, but $166,000. So I here's the planned budget, and I will attach all the links in the comments. But here's a planned budget. So $100,000 rehab is a lot, but I thought I did a pretty good job estimating how much we needed. So here is the labor. So let's see, right here. So this is labor. So the things that stick out already are the structural. So that's the foundation and the block fix. The budget was 20 grand. I said we have another 20 grand on the budget for about 40 grand. You don't see that extra 20 grand contingency. I'll tell you why later. But but what happened was we got quoted 44 grand for installing 27 piers and having the foam go up to 21 feet. And long story short, each pier went over 30 feet basically. So that increased the cost. So I had to finance 40,000 of it because I did not have cash. I didn't want to ask you, of course. Just figuring out a way to make it work. Budget for the new roof was 15. And then our labor was 19. How did we get here? So I actually got a quote before we even purchased of 13,200. The reason why it ended up being 19,000 is because there was a lot of roof damage. They did not fix it since like 4 hurricanes ago, I guess. And once they unveiled the tarp, then they were able to see that we had to replace some fascia and some of the plywood because it was not able to be fixed. So they charged us per sheet, and we can see that receipt attached as well. So kitchen, yeah. So we actually did pretty decent here. Budget for the labor was this from Harley, and that's what estimated materials. And I spent that much in materials. Still high, but I'll explain how we got there as well. But I'm not going to go into every detail. But the biggest things was the foundation because it ended up being basically what is that? Yeah, it ended up being 46 grand more than expected. So that's where we are. Like I said, this video is to kind of tell you the numbers. What does this mean, right? In this, you can see in the miscellaneous where it's doors, windows. So $5,000 of this hasn't really been used yet. That's what I'm expecting that we're going to have left to spend for the rest of this. So, hopefully we don't have to spend an extra $5,000, but you can see that if we don't spend it, then obviously that's going to save us some moolah. This is exactly what was quoted. And then what does this mean? So right now, if we were to sell the property today for $335, sales price is $335. Our loan, this includes the $100,000 rehab. So obviously, profit would be that much. So obviously, we have to pay the people who make this happen. So 8.5% closing costs is what I estimated. So basically, the profit from gross profit before the closing cost was 130. Add the closing cost to it. Now the money that's left is $101,000. So I did kind of do this backwards, so we can just kind of get a full view. If we were to get our money back / break even, and I did break even in quotation marks for transcript purposes. But let's move that bad boy. So obviously I put in 15 grand from the IRA. And then at the 15% IRA, you get paid back, excuse my dog there, which 15% interest is that much. And then I paid for the appraisal. And then Mark's EMD was 10,000, and the rest of the closing costs to cash to close that Mark provided was this much. So let's see, just make sure. So basically, net profit or profit, still gross profit after we pay ourselves back is 53 grand to use. So like I said, we went over budget for the foundation by 46,000. That's something that was just literally is impossible to know unless we paid for the structural people in the foundation, or actually paid for the engineer first before closing on the property. So obviously, it's gonna be possible to do that. But I coordinated with Shane, blah blah blah. But it is what it is. There's literally no way for us to know. So now we subtract the finance foundation, which is 40 grand. So that leaves us with a still close to net profit, but gross profit, gross profit is in quotation marks, is $13,000. So that's how much money before we deduct the amount of materials / labor that we spent over budget. So what is this formula? So obviously in this loan is 100 grand. So that was 100 grand of construction. So that's materials and labor. So what I did was subtract the total from this. This is how much we are spending. These are the actual totals. And this does include part of the loan. So the 100 grand is in here. So I basically did the total of that deducted from the 100 grand because that was money that was paid for by the bank. And then I also, since I subtracted the 40,000 already into this, so basically it's 140 grand. So 100 grand from the rehab from the bank, and the 40 grand that's financed that I subtracted. And the reason why I'm doing that is because that's technically a loan, so we're going to have to pay that. I don't want that on my record or your record. So since I was deducted there, this leaves 26 grand basically left for materials that we went over budget. And you deduct that from the rest of the profit that we have. This is what we expect to lose. So another thing that is not on here is our holding cost. So you can see right here that carry interest cost / closing costs. This is if we were to sell it in 8 months is 18 grand. So I'm just labeling that holding costs. I do have a holding cost budget here. So this is what's estimated. This is what we have actually spent, and this is what's left. So basically, the faster we can sell it, the better it would be. If we sold it today, we would basically break even. It just took 8 months because obviously there's 13 grand left. So technically, we've made a profit, and then we got to figure that out afterwards. But at this point, I'm just not including it just because we're right in the middle, and we'd both be breaking even because that 13 grand that we had left to spend would just go into the profit. So yeah, this is where we are, period, point blank. So if you want to, if you're good with that, just you can stop. But now I'm going to continue to understanding what went bad here. How was I off this much? What could have been prevented? What could I have done to prevent going over budget? So yeah, like I said, that's the underwriting. Now here's just the explanation of how we got here. So if you want to continue to watch this video. So number one, let's start with our rehab budget. So I'm getting my calculator ready so I can just be prepared here. So when I got this quote, I literally walked with Harley. He is the construction or the handyman that I used. I may use this later, Mark, for someone else or teaching purposes. So that's why I'm talking like this. But this is a quote that we have. So 29,272,000. Fair. And I said our entire budget was 100 grand. So if we are to subtract 100 grand from or 20, not basically, let's just round it to 30. So $30,000, 100,000 minus $30,000 is 70 grand. So we had 70 grand left of materials to spend. So I said originally I wanted a $20,000 budget with another 20,000 in contingency. So that's 40 grand. So if we do the 100 grand minus the 30 grand, then that would leave us left to spend 70 grand. And then let's subtract the structural minus $40,000. We had $30,000 worth of material to spend. And our numbers would be okay, okay like that, right? That's what the original underwriting was. It made sense. Um, Roof, basically everything that we've already spent on, and then that's what we had 30 grand to spend. So would we have gone over budget? Maybe slightly, but not by 26 grand, right? Um, so what happened? The original budget that we had that Harley provided went from 20, let's just say 30 grand, 20, it was 29,272 to $42,000. So that was a difference of 13 grand. 13 grand. So that's 13 grand that was unexpected. And why did this happen is because he claims that this was just like an easy way, like a quick guess, not knowing what needed to be done. And he knew what needed to be done. I literally said everything I wanted to do. I told him this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. He had notes, he had an iPad, so I didn't think that we're gonna be here. So this 13 grand difference is probably the biggest thing. That's annoying that I felt should have been prevented. There was no paperwork signed, nothing like that. But from now on, where this at least teaches us whenever we get a quote, we need to know the actuals because what he did was give us a smaller number to basically try to win the job, which is doesn't make any sense to me. But that's 13 grand that $13,639 that is now lost into this deal. If you can see on our projections, we wouldn't have lost money. So we would have made, a couple dollars, but there is one. Another thing, going back to this, and like I said, I'm gonna send this link in the comments here. But our structure, oh my gosh, the structural. So um, you can see this is what I have. So $40,000 financing. And this is excluding the interest, of course. That's the cash. So there was no way for us to know. Unfortunately, there was just no way for us to know. I've thought about this multiple times. It was just tough to kind of understand what needed to be done. Um, so just just very unfortunate. I don't know if I'll ever do anything like this again. If I do, I'm probably not gonna bring partners so I can stomach it myself and do a crazy budget. So our holding costs, we expect to do this for 8 months. So this is a total of, let's see, five, like I said, it's right here, obviously. So $5,600. So basically, the sooner we sell it, the more money we can save. And right now, that 13 grand that Harley increased by, and this 13 grand if we sold today, I mean, we're at 26, right? So there's a lot of things that could have been prevented. One thing that I could have definitely did better on my end is the doors and windows. So um, I think it's gonna be worth replacing all the windows. Let's see, holding costs, miscellaneous. Okay, yeah, okay. So I put the window press right there, but um, the doors and windows is definitely something that I need to be better about. So the doors itself was about $2,600. I was using that in the contingency that we had. Part of that 20 grand for the structural. That was contingency for everything, but no one thought that I was going to go up to over 40 grand. So I did use resources there. But this was a part of the contingency. I think we'll spend about 5 grand total of the things that are left, including windows. I've already spent money on 2 windows, like $681. Yeah, right there. So yeah, here's just a basic snapshot. So just to kind of recap everything and bring everything with some closure. The structural is something that we could not have prepared for. I asked Shane, the engineer. I had quotes, brought engineers out, and they all said basically it's going to require a lot of work. All right, great. And then once we actually got it, it was 40 grand. I got tried to get 4 or 5 quotes. 3 people didn't want to quote it. I got one foundation quote for 100 grand and another one for 44 grand. And that 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 was it, period, point blank. And that was before knowing the overage. So there was an overage, obviously, that made things worse. Even with that, like I said, Harley went up 13 grand. That was unexpected. And then also, the bathrooms are, so for the bathrooms, it went from 3,800 a bathroom to 6,150 a bathroom. So the bathrooms itself went over our labor. And one thing I specifically said was, once I got that quote, I used that as um, my basis. So like the bathroom labor itself was 12 grand. And this was before buying any materials. And I still have some materials to buy, um, which is unbelievable. Like, why would I want to quote that and be over budget immediately? It makes zero sense. I didn't. So that's one thing of using a handyman who you kind of get what you pay for. Is kind of how I'll put it. Just because I've never done with this. He's great. He does good work. However, this is just unorganized, and it didn't feel uh, like something you get from someone else, to say the least. Um, but this is where we are. So structural went over budget. Handyman went up 13 grand. The foundation, there's no way we could have known to inject it. All that said is, if we are to sell this thing in 8 months, we lose 13 grand. That most of that is going to be financed, most likely. So we'll obviously talk about how to go about that. It's in a contract. And then if we can sell it before any of this right here, if we can basically every month that so every month that we save divided by 8 months, it's $2,300 that that we're saving. So that can go in quick. Um, Basically, selling quick isn't a matter. So yeah, and then I don't know why it says that, quite frankly, because what is this? Yeah, there's something funky in here, but we don't actually lose that much. I just did these numbers right here. And then if there's anything that's weird that's insect to me that I miss, I'll let you know. Um, but yeah, the thing about the hard money loan is, since the 100 grand is a part of the loan, just makes things tricky. So it's not like we actually had all of that, of course. But yeah, and it's also including the holding costs, closing costs. Yeah. Yep. So let me know what you think.